let's just go ahead and get started. We want to welcome you to this program of the University of Arkansas Small Business Technology Development Center, the ASBTDC. We are very pleased to be able to bring you these educational programs that help support small businesses. Please be advised that we will be recording this conversation for ASBTDC education purposes, and you will be able to access these recordings and everything of all of our past workshops and webinars at our website. And we're going to go ahead and, Chris, if you will post that link for everybody to be able to find, we'll post that in the chat. I'm going to introduce Nathan momentarily, but first I'd like to introduce us and tell you a little bit about the ASBTDC. I'm Amy Robinson. I'm a specialty consultant with the Small Business Center. And if you don't know about the Small Business Development Center, it is a one-stop shop for startups and existing small businesses. We are associated with the University of Arkansas and affiliated with the SBA and a statewide ASBTDC, as well as a national network of more than 1,000 small business centers. You can find an SBTDC or an SBDC in regions throughout the country. Locally, we offer complimentary one-on-one consulting and programs like this. We cover relevant topics for business owners, and if you're not already a client, we encourage you to visit us at sbtdc.edu, and we will post that how to become a client also in the chat. After this presentation, you can find this and other programs and recordings and some tools that we offer to help support your small business. We'll get all of those posted throughout the program, so you will not lose us. You'll be able to find us in all kinds of places. Again, I'm going to remind you, if we cannot see your full name in the participants, to send a message to Julie Preddy or to all panelists with your full name so that we can get you all the information after the webinar. Chris, would you like to tell us how we're going to do things today?
I sure will. So Amy, today we're going to bring you Web 101, and this is the first in a series that Nathan is going to be covering. On the 17th, he will present Web 102 about building an e-commerce, and on the 24th, Web 103, building your website to convert. So he's going to have 3 sessions, and I hope you guys all attend all 3 because he'll build off each one of these. Now, this is a webinar format today, so we know you are going to have a lot of questions. Please engage with us via chat or Q&A at any time during the presentation. We will be monitoring both very, very closely. So we're also going to be collecting questions in the Q&A because we will have a Q&A session after Nathan is done speaking, and we'll leave enough time for you all to ask any questions that you might have. So if you want to just keep compiling the questions that you have, we will ask those at the end also. So if you want to be anonymous, though, you can do the Q&A, or you can send just the panelists in the chat a message, and we will answer those too. But again, we're going to be monitoring both of those close, so please ask as many questions as you possibly can have. Amy, back to you.
Absolutely. We want to be as interactive as a webinar can be. So while we're getting to know Nathan, we also want to get to know you. So if you will please post in the chat or send the panelists a message and let us know what industry or maybe what part of your website development journey that you're in, and any questions that you already know that you have today. We would love to gather those. Telling us what industry you're in or what your company is very helpful for us, and especially Nathan as he goes along, to give examples and maybe talk to you specifically. So without further hesitation, we're going to turn it over to Nathan. How are you today, Nathan?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Chris. I'm very excited to be here. I'm excited to tell you a few things that I know. So,
just a few.
More than a few.
Hopefully it helps you out. So let me just start the show. So I am Nathan Allen. I'm a designer and a developer here in Northwest Arkansas, which gives me sort of a unique perspective on just developing websites to convert and making sure that their brand is strong in the process. That's a big challenge that we see a lot at Concord Adams. We like to say that we build web experiences that inform, convert, and delight. That's not just our tagline, it's sort of words that we live by. Every website that we do, we try to make sure that it sort of lives up to that standard. So just getting started. I'm sure that a lot of you have said these words, or maybe you're saying it right now. I need a website. This is usually the point where we start asking questions like, what platform should I use? Or how much a website should cost. So there is a lot to unpack in these two questions. And I want to really help your process by backtracking a little bit and starting with some more formative questions that lead to that, those questions that you're asking right now, some things that can probably help your developers or designers or marketers that who you might engage with, or if you're doing it yourself. But first, let's talk about developers, designers, and marketers. They are principally problem solvers. So whenever you're choosing a platform or setting a budget, you really have to sort of put that aside for a minute and think about what is the problem I'm trying to solve. It's never really a good idea to start with the solution, which like might be like what platform you want to use. That's the answer to a bigger question. Just back up and let's talk about the problem that you're trying to solve and the purpose, the thing that kicked all of this off, the thing that made you need a website in the first place. So first I want to talk about defining your vision. As a CEO or a small business owner, even if it's just you starting a business, you probably have a vision, a high level goal that made you start this. This may not be your first product. You've been in business for a while. You've proven the veracity of your product claims and stuff like that. Your business represents a higher end goal, and that kind of nets an idea of like what does success look like for your website. Having these things in mind at a high level will do a lot for a web developer. You may have known this for years, but it's really hard to communicate that succinctly to sort of a newcomer, somebody who you've engaged to represent your business online needs to keep your vision top of mind the whole time. They need to, whenever they're confused about a big question or they're not sure how to proceed, they should think of this as a go-to answer. So within that sort of question, you need to determine what is the principal function of your site. Now we're going to talk more about function later, but this is good to sort of touch on just for starters. Do you want to educate your clients to drive purchases? Do you want to just increase the value of your brand? It's best to just kind of give yourself an overall goal that is primary. What do I need to do with this site to make it a success? What will be just a winning solution at the end of the day, no matter how it's executed? And just I want to make money is fine. That's not a bad goal. So next, I want to talk about a content first approach. This is kind of what I call this solution. I'm sure other people have talked about it in other forms before, but everything kind of stems from your content. Having fleshed out content makes your brand better, which in turn will make your functionality of your website go smoother and make everything more just more logical. So let's get started on content. Do we have any questions? It's pretty basic, I know. None yet?
It is. I think, no, Nathan, it's huge what you're doing to kind of get people started, because that step back that you just did at the beginning is so valuable. When it comes to, we do go straight to how much is this going to cost, and kind of slowing down and thinking about what the purpose is. And I know a lot of our clients, and right now we have a moving company with us, which is awesome. And so that's a service, and there are prices attached to it, and some other things. But there are, we've got clients that are full service only businesses. We've got product company, people selling products, and those have, what is that purpose is huge. It's wonderful. I really appreciate that.
Great. I'll keep that moving company in mind as we move through this. So let's talk about content. So you've heard people say content is king. It's kind of a thing that floats around on LinkedIn a lot, I think. But it is. And the more you develop your content at every scale of your business, the better your resulting strategies like website design and all of that are going to go. I really like to encourage people to develop at the smallest scale first. Like maybe if you're in e-commerce, you've got product pages, or just need a way to describe your products, each individual product, in a way that connects to the bigger brand. Doing that first is going to help you next develop copy for collections or just categories. This is for e-commerce here that I've kind of outlined, but you could, even in service levels, if you're like a accountant, then you have people in, business taxes buckets and personal tax buckets. Those are categories that probably need their own copy. And then lastly, you write the brand level copy. That's relating back to, what do you stand for as a brand? What core values unite all of these products together that kind of make them better than the competition? You don't just get that overnight. It kind of stems from the rest of the copy that you're going to write more details about. So this is just some copy that I came up with. This isn't real at all, but just as an example, let's say this soap company, Boom Bang. I spent a lot of hours trying to think of that name. Boom Bang has a product called Lemon Pale Soap. They write copy that is succinct and to the point on that product, specifically that product. But you see here they're mentioning that production happens in their own factory, and it's low impact. So that relates back to a bigger brand claim about not leaving a single mark on the planet. And it all kind of flows like that, with from very detailed to high level. Having all of this figured out for your content is extremely helpful for a web developer and a marketer, and pretty much anybody who's going to come together and make your website. It just makes the hours needed to build something like that and understand the strategy so much lower. So okay, so after content gets figured out, brand is next. And I know that I just want to mention that I know some of you probably have a logo already, and maybe you already have copy, maybe you don't have like as figured out copy as you'd like to right now. Not everybody follows all of these steps in this order, but it's really good to at least just have all of these before a website project begins. It's best case scenario.
Nathan, I'll let you know that it's, a couple of questions that we asked were industry, and the other question was kind of where they are in their development journey. And so you do have a couple of people on here that have existing websites, and they're kind of looking at, updating and or do they even need to do anything with their site? So kind of in the reevaluation phase, maybe is one way to look at it.
Okay, great. Well, hopefully some of this sort of raises some questions that might point you in the right direction. Maybe revisiting copy is something that you might want to do. Maybe looking at the logo and rethinking sort of everything about that. So let's talk about the logo. There are some very big brands here. I know they're not exactly local brands, but the concept is the same. You want to ask yourself or your designer, if you're in the middle of a logo design project, is my logo responsive? So this is a concept that has been around for a while because, generally speaking, the world tends to test someone's logo at various different sizes for readability. You're driving down the road, a mile away from a billboard that has a logo on it. How much of your drive can you actually read the logo? That kind of stuff is what we used to think about. Not so much anymore. It's more about digital strategy now, because logos tend to appear on social as icons, iconic kind of logos. They appear on T-shirts, or just in the corner, as very low profile logo. They appear as icons on your phone, and then they appear on your website, of course. So the ability to conform to whatever space a logo is being used in is really vital in a digital space. Um, a lot of people out there have one logo, and that's okay. But sometimes we shouldn't be feel like we're trapped in having only one logo. There can be different versions of that logo that do better in different scenarios. So I would encourage your designer, or new or old, to reevaluate a logo on how flexible it is like that, and how visible it is at small sizes. These are just a few examples of that, but Googling responsive logo is definitely going to give you all the information you need on that. Okay, so let's talk about brand colors. This is a big deal on the web, and I'll show you some examples of this later. But there's this concept on the internet called calls to action, or conversions. These are actions that your visitors take to do a thing that you want them to do a task that you're basically pushing them for. You might have sent them to your website through ads, and you need them to do this thing to get money, or to get some kind of value out of those ads. This could be buying a product. It could be signing up for a mailing list. It could just be reading an article, although usually calls to action are something that's measurable. So each of these things, usually each of these calls to action usually are colored with a brand color. And it's important to have to just know that ahead of time, that you're going to need to have a color that stands out as a conversion color. This is just an example I put together. It's not a real company, but you notice how the green color, the really light teal color, sort of pops out against all of the other design. The primary brand colors are this purple, but it's really helpful that this brand has teal as a supporting color for conversions. Now, it's not required that you have another color for conversion, but and if your color is purple, then your color is purple, and that could be your conversion color. But you just want to kind of put it through the test on that. Is that enough to stand out as places where the visitor expects to be able to do something? So here are a few basic, real basic examples of things to avoid with call to action colors or conversion colors. For one thing, don't overuse your brand color if you have one color. It's in the first scenario here, people will not know where to click as easily as if you had used that color sparingly and just for buttons and links. Now, I get that people are eventually going to figure out that that's a button and they can click it. People aren't dumb, but we're talking about some very split-second decisions that happen when somebody first visits a site. There are a few studies that I remember reading a while ago, so I'm not sure if they're still relevant, but on the internet, people basically get impatient if something doesn't happen within a quarter of a second, which is very, very fast moving. In that same time, they actually expect to have a good idea of what's going on. So it works both ways. Whenever a page loads, it needs to instantly make clear visually, not just with text or having to read something to know what it is. Visually, what is important and what's clickable. So it's really important to not overuse the color. If you have one color, it should be reserved for brand and maybe just like places to click. This is not a good idea. Red as a conversion color is really tough. I've been in scenarios where a primary brand color is red. Um, it's fine to have a brand color as red, but I really encourage you to think of a secondary color, because in that split second, most of the time when people see red, they think warning um, or an error has occurred. We've been trained to think that from lots of web experiences where we see something's gone wrong on a form that we were filling out, and it's all red, you know? So unless your target or a major company that spent, millions of dollars figuring out a solution to that problem, it's really a good idea to stay away from that.
It's that red pen that our English teacher used, right? Right, Nathan?
Yeah. Hey,
Exactly.
Nathan, we do have a question about colors. What is your suggestion about transitioning colors of your brand? So they've got some colors that they feel are, they've had around for 20 years. They feel like they're maybe a little bit outdated. They're Microsoft colors. They want to transition. What would be your suggestion?
Microsoft colors. Okay, so sort of all
They're similar.
Rainbow.
rainbow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
And yeah. And
Yeah,
they've got a recognizable logo that has, some dots in it that makes it, so obviously they've been around a while. They don't want to go completely away. So how do you transition or update in a situation like that?
so brand color is not an easy thing to work in, and it's very subjective. My advice would be very subjective to the individual brand, because I don't even know what you do. It might be there might be a very specific function for those colors in your brand, but I would start with sort of an audit of how you're using color currently, how you're using it on the site, what colors could you add or take away from it to sort of facilitate a new color use on your site or whatever you're using it on. Maybe it's in print. Um, I think that only a designer who dives deep into your brand and understands it could really answer that question really well. I'm sorry, this is a non-answer, but I do think that generally speaking, uh, colors that are all across the color wheel, sort of rainbow colors, are very hard to work with. They unless you're Google, it's I'm just going to move to my next slide here because and I'll tell you about my rainbow color rule. All colors, generally speaking, are almost the same as no colors, um, because there's not a single side of the color wheel that people can learn to identify your brand with. Now, if you're a paint company, that rule becomes a little bit more challenging, because your business is color. So you see, there are exceptions to these rules, and I'm trying to give you some top level things to avoid, but a designer might come in there and say, there's a really good reason to break this rule, and here's why. So I think just thinking it out, assessing how you're using color and how you could use color to underline your core brand values better, just that's sort of a personal thing. For each brand, it's different. But if you wanted to tell me more about your business later, I can. I'm happy
Yeah.
to give you some more detailed advice.
Well,
Since
and
that
I
was
think,
not an answer.
yeah, and I think, Nathan, one of the things that's resonating with me on this is also you'd mentioned how the uses of logos probably 20 years ago was driving down a highway and a billboard, and now it is in the digital space. And so, so revisiting that and looking at that, they are a lighting company, just for future reference,
Okay, makes
and
sense.
and
Yeah.
that'll be helpful. But I do, that revisiting some of those, and it's like anything else that we revisit in our business. Sometimes the landscape changes. So that's really great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah. Would love to talk to them later. So some more general rules, as long as you're not a lighting company, are blue links get more clicks. This is something that we've all been trained to think that blue equals a link. from the very beginnings of the internet, and it's kind of not gone away. It won't go away very easily. I think Google did a test on their search results, like what exact shade of blue got the most clicks, and it was still just regular old dark blue from 1999. And so this is a rule that if your brand has blue in it, it's just a little bit better for conversion. I don't. This doesn't mean that every brand should have blue links. It's just a good thing to know. If you have blue, you have a tiny little superpower for people clicking your buttons. So keep that in mind. The next rule is don't use no color. Now, there are some exceptions to this rule. I always like to talk about Pottery Barn. They have no color in their brand. Their color essentially is the photos of the very highly curated rooms and stuff that they create to sell their products. That's their brand color. It's no color, but it does have color. So that's a good reason to break the rule. But generally speaking, no brand color is really tough to work with when you have no method to highlight calls to action with. So that's sort of a handicap if a developer or designer inherits a project where there aren't any colors. They have to, before even designing a layout, they have to figure out how are we going to cue people to that something is clickable. So keep that in mind. And then we already talked about the rainbow colors. Not hating on the rainbow, but it's, as a general rule, it's a little too much sometimes. All right. Now we're at function. This is the fun, logical part that makes me excited. So make a list of all of your actions that you want people to take. These potentially are calls to action on your site, but they are kind of more calls to action and goals. Do you want people to be able to schedule calls with a professional at your organization? Do you want them just to like your Instagram, collect emails from marketing, buy your product on Amazon, make a reservation? I would just love to see somebody make a list of everything that they want to allow people to do. And then after the list is done, we start thinking about priority. What is the most important? So I have a thing that I like to do, that just because I'm somewhat of a visualizing person, I like to think of all of these actions as doors in a room, and you're sending your visitors into a room basically that has just these doors. Now, how many doors are too many? That's a good question to ask for each brand. It depends on how important, how many high level important actions you have, but it's important not to prioritize too many at once, because when faced with many decisions, people generally leave. That's they don't have to go through one of those doors. They can turn around and leave. So making choices simple for people, like 3 doors, is very key to keeping people on the page and making sure that those doors are central to your business. Those are the central goals that will impact your top line, your vision, the most. And knowing that for a developer is really key in creating layouts that will convert, that will work for your website. So here are some examples of that for a tax accounting business, which I know nothing about, but I'm generally, I know that they are broken into business and personal taxes. So here's an example of just a service business and what their doors might be, really simple. Primary on every page would probably be a contact us, because they want to capitalize on people being at that decision point already at any point. And then always, maybe on the homepage, they have primarily links to learn more about those 2 buckets of services that they offer. For an e-commerce site, it's pretty straightforward. You've seen this on every e-commerce site. New products are prioritized first, that big door. most popular collections are probably next, and then probably a little bit about their brand. So they jump people right into buying something that they see and they want. And then last in that list is, learning about the brand, like, wonder where this product came from. Just tends to be the order in which people think of things. Okay, so those are just two pretty vague examples. But I also want to talk about some things to avoid. Um, I always try to tell people not to make the internet complicated. Um, I hear a lot of people, a lot of clients sometimes have some really grand ideas of swiping elements and drop downs and expanding things like which I get it is a lot of fun. I love building those things, but when they're for the right reasons. A rule of thumb when you're kind of explaining to a developer or somebody designing your site is to try to keep things as simple as possible. This goes back to kind of how we were trained to use the internet by all of the other websites that we've visited in the past. We know already, without anybody having to teach us, that websites scroll down, that web pages on different topics usually have different addresses that you link out to them. We know that the search symbol, this spyglass, means search. Google spent a fortune teaching us that. And we know that this symbol on mobile typically means that that's a menu. Now, breaking outside of these rules, if you have sideways scrolling pages and things like that, that's introducing a learning curve to any user. And while it's cool, and I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but you should be prepared for a lot of testing, and testing takes time and money. It's something that needs to have, you need to keep a firm eye on it and make sure that it's not inhibiting people's ability to find what they need. So just a fair warning there. So some of those, back to those doors and those colors. Let me just take you through two examples here of things that I found that kind of highlight this. So this is rei.com desktop version. You see they have a very big call out for their biggest focus right now. Tomorrow is another adventure. Gear up for hiking day. So this must be their newest initiative, newest products. They want you to click on this first. It's the big door, followed by 3 smaller doors. These are the 3 next priorities. And then they go into, top categories. This is their lower level. They're also using, even though REI doesn't really have a color that comes to mind for me, actually, when I think about the brand, I don't actually think of a color. It's usually black or white, the way I see it. They still have a conversion color. They have that green, and they've thought through that, probably done a lot of testing on that and figured out they needed it on the web. Okay, here's one of my favorite sites that's been out there recently, BiteToothpasteBits.com. It's a really cool site. If you're into subscription products that make your life easier, don't worry, they haven't paid me anything. Anyway, they still play by this rule of prioritizing the doors that you're going to walk through. The biggest is just to jump right in and start shopping now. If people scroll down and they're not quite into that, they're going to show them the smaller doors, different categories that might interest them more. It just kind of depends on what type of web explorer you are. Do you scroll down or do you just start clicking things? It applies to both people. And of course, their conversion color is their brand color, which is fine because they aren't using that color too many places. They're being very limited in it because they realize that they've used this as a conversion color, so they can't put up a bunch of other purple things that will confuse people. All right. So some general advice. If you're getting stuck in this whole process, which don't feel bad. It's easy to get stuck in this whole crazy world of digital. There are plenty of things that I've come across that don't really have rules to them. Scenarios that I couldn't say for sure if it one way or the other. And the best thing to do in that scenario is just go out and research and see what other people in your industry are doing, just other businesses who you respect. Anybody who might be solving the same problem that you are, just start getting curious about, where is this problem actually solved out there? And especially if it's a mid to big size company, they, companies with budget are going to put a website change through a lot of testing and spend money on it to put users through it. And so they, that's expensive to do, and you can benefit from their expenses by just going and seeing what they decided on. It's one of my favorite things to do is to steal discoveries from Fortune 500 websites. Get it for free. So next is, this is kind of a hard one to tell everybody, but your website isn't for your customer. Isn't for you, it's for your customer. It's easy to get caught up in, my website should be pleasing to me, which generally speaking it should, but at the end of the day, it's actually for the people who are going to convert on it, the people who might make you money, who might, actually fulfill the goals of the site. So you want to make sure that you always have top of mind the type of person going through your site, and start thinking about the experience in their mind, not yours, just in case you're different from them. Okay. And lastly, the journey doesn't end. We all love to have launch dates and, have a website done. You need that. You definitely need to have a launch date. But past that, after the web developer goes away, if they do, it's important to keep in mind that the evolution of a site shouldn't just stop there. You should keep learning from the experience that your customers are getting through the site. Keep looking for ways for it to get better, because as we move on, your digital presence is going to become more and more of your business. This is going to be the difference for certain industries between winning and losing. The better you do at keeping people happy who visit your site, the more better you're going to do in the long run. So always be thinking about conversions and how it can get better. Okay. Finally, we're at the platform question. So there was a talk by someone at Nicely Built, I think a couple of weeks ago, right?
Natasha, yeah.
Natasha, yes. She did a fantastic job outlining all of the platforms that you might be considering. I definitely recommend you look at her talk. And I don't want to do the same thing again, because that's not only would that add an hour to the talk, but it would also just be repetitive. So I'm just going to tell you some of my favorites. I really like Squarespace for DIY projects. That's without a developer. I think that they make things really easy to build, very low cost and very low risk. It's I'm pretty sure you can't break a Squarespace site. I've tried really hard, but it's not that great for when you do have a developer that's going to do some custom stuff. And if you want supreme control over your site, it's not going to be able to do everything you want. It's also, although they have e-commerce, it's not my favorite for that, because the reporting isn't that great. Your own operation may have specific needs that land you at Squarespace, but just in terms of measurement and where they're headed, for flexibility, I'm not sure that it's the right place. But moving on, that's mostly because I really love Shopify. Shopify is to me, if you're an e-commerce company or if you're selling anything, Shopify is sort of the best of all worlds, because it can be very editable, like Squarespace. It allows you to extend its functionality with apps, which are nice. It's not too expensive, and it's fantastic at e-commerce. It takes care of a lot of the risks and still gives you quite a bit of flexibility with e-commerce. The bad parts of it are it's not great at content management. So if your product is, if you know, service company, or if you have a lot of content that needs to be managed, it's not so great at that. It can be done just with a little more pain and a little more development. It's limited on complex development. So there is some development you can do. You can customize layouts and all that stuff. But once you start getting into really crazy integrations, it takes a little more effort. A little more effort than WordPress. So WordPress, I like to call a developer playhouse, because it's a developer can have access to everything, the whole house. There are plugins to be used for sort of if you just wanted to do it yourself and download some plugins and make it do this or that, that's fine. But the principal function of WordPress is content management. That's what it was made for. So service companies who want a custom experience typically will land here, just because there's a lot of content they need to manage and have layouts for. I don't like WordPress for some scenarios where generally speaking, it can have a lot of risks involved. It needs a lot of management to run well. Plugins can interact with each other and take the site down, or there are all kinds of things that can happen when you are responsible for the whole house. This goes for e-commerce too. You can have e-commerce on WordPress with something called WooCommerce. I don't recommend it because it takes a lot of babying. I don't know anybody who's run a WooCommerce site that hasn't been down for like 2 days a month. Like it's, or have a problem that needs to be fixed that's not letting people through. It takes a lot of treatment. So just to avoid that mess, I always try to push people towards Shopify. That being said, WordPress can be you can make a really cool site with WordPress. It just takes a lot more developer attention.
So Nathan, pausing here and thinking about, the different phases that some of everybody is in, and we'll hopefully have a little bit of time for Q&A at the end of here, but so let's just say that somebody has had a website for a long time. It's built on one of these platforms. Maybe it isn't WordPress and they're thinking that they want to manage it themselves. It's going down. We have somebody that's saying they've got WordPress, bugs in the site, goes down at random times. Is something like Squarespace an option? And then we also have somebody asking about Wix and if it's on par with Squarespace. That was kind of like 3 questions all at one time, but
yeah, that's fine. All 3. Okay. Wix, I just say I'm sorry, I don't know very much about Wix. I haven't done any development in Wix, but I believe that it's very close to Squarespace, and then just kind of a website builder, not a lot of developer freedom. I think there's nothing wrong with those, and a lot of websites, a lot of goals for brands can be achieved really well with those. Those kinds of sites like Squarespace and Wix, they often have themes that you can buy to just set up for $150. We'll get to that in a minute. Having maybe it takes sort of resetting your whole site on Wix or Squarespace with one of those themes that kind of has a lot of the design stuff figured out. Maybe that's what's called for. That WordPress site that has problems, it really depends on what the function of your site is. If it is a service and you're not selling things there, you might look at.
They're a photographer. Mm-hmm.
Oh, I would absolutely recommend Squarespace. my portfolio site is a Squarespace because I don't want to deal with developer problems on my own site, and that's kind of lazy of me. But it gets the job done really well. And for displaying portfolios, absolutely, it's made for that, I would say. You may have some integrations that maybe like client portals and stuff like that you'll have to research how to integrate, but for the most part, I bet you could set up Squarespace yourself without a developer.
Hey, Nathan, a couple more that they have questions about. Google My Business and Weebly, if I pronounce that.
Weebly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about Weebly. I think it's also like Squarespace and Wix. It's one of those builders, but I might be wrong. So I'm only giving you my favorites that in most of the work that I do is custom development, and those are not platforms that allow that kind of work. But yeah, I do know that Squarespace is gaining in popularity, so I always side with Squarespace because maybe I don't know enough about what the others are working on, but the market share for Squarespace is big for a reason. They're really getting better in a lot of places. So they're kind of my favorite.
Fantastic. And we do have a question about Google My Business, and this may be something that you're going to cover in a couple of the future, maybe in the last one, 103 to convert. But just kind of the utilization of Google My Business, and this one is on the moving company that does residential and business moves. So if that's something that we're going to address later, then let us know. But that is kind of out there.
Yeah, I think that gets into a little more strategy that is going to be discussed in 102 and definitely in 103.
Okay.
So yeah, hang tight for that one. But you may have just altered the path of this course a little bit. I'll try to dig in a little more for you because I'm not exactly an expert in my Google My Business either.
Fantastic.
So let me just go through costs. This kind of looks almost the same all across the board here, but if you're wondering about cost, that second question that we started with, what is a website going to cost? Squarespace is going to be very cost effective. You can get a already created template for $150, or you can use one of theirs that they include, which are not bad, which would be $0. There is no like custom development here, but you can pay a designer or somebody to just help go through your theme and sort of, add your brand colors, your logo, and upload photos and stuff, and just get the layout right. It doesn't take very technical knowledge, but if you don't have the time to do it, you can just get some design student to do it. It's something I always recommend. It's kind of good experience for them, and it's cost effective for you. So next, Shopify. Custom development usually starts around $2,500. That's usually where I see it start. And depending on how complex you want to go with your site, how many functions you have, what do you want to do with it? It could go much higher. It just kind of all depends on those line item functions that you outlined earlier. But you can also just use Shopify's basic themes. You don't have to have a developer do all this. You can just use one of the themes that they include, or you can buy some of them for $150 about out there and just plug it in and see if this is going to work for your business and for your brand. So I don't want to shy people away from that. Same kind of scenario with WordPress. You can buy themes for $150, or generally creating a custom theme is going to start around $2,500.
Price is always important and a consideration, isn't
it? Yeah. I really want to stress this. It's not bad to get a theme and build it yourself. Just drag and drop. See what you can create on your own. Your brand best, unless you have a designer committed to it 24/7. You can probably start this way and at a very low cost. I really encourage it because a lot of the steps that I've talked about, like developing content, developing brand and all that, creating a website this way kind of forces that, because you start thinking about how many pages we need, what do we need to explain, how should they be structured? Like you almost start doing these things ahead of time, even if you wind up with a custom developer for like something that you figured out you need something custom. You will have already figured out your content, and that's great. So it's sort of part of the journey, right?
Fantastic. I'm going to pause right here and let everybody know that we do have some programs coming up on Google My Business. We have a past program, and then we do have some coming up. We've got actually one on March 25th, Reach Customers Online with Google, and a couple of coming up in April. So you can find that at our events. Chris has posted about that. So if it's just a tiny piece of what you're doing with us in the future, Nathan, we do have some other things coming up. So don't sweat it. Phew, got it covered.
Yeah, you might have some better experts on that than I. So
yeah,
that's maybe I'll just let them handle it. But yeah, well, I'll definitely try to include it though, just briefly.
Great. And Nathan, we've got about 5 minutes left.
Okay, well, we're at the end here, and I just wanted to review. First, in this whole process, you need to find your goal or vision. Next, develop your content. Then create your digital brand, and then make a list of your key functions, and then you're able to pick a platform and maybe a developer before that. So all this said and done, I want to leave you with, don't let anybody stop you from trying it yourself. You don't absolutely need a developer first. I think that the risk reward formula there says that creating your own site may be more rewarding at first, and you'll learn a lot from it, and it's a low cost. So don't take that off the board.
There's power in the process, huh, Nathan?
Yep, that's it.
Fantastic. Well, we have put out there a few times how to get in touch with you so that everybody can find you, and we want to make sure that everybody gets their questions answered. We've had a few comments. I think that we've put everything out there that we've had it so far. So if you have any other questions right now in our last couple of minutes, please do. Oh, I do have a comment about hosting. So that sometimes hosting is an issue. So you've got, GoDaddy and Gator and Bluehost and some of those others. And so do you have any hosting recommendations when it comes to where things are hosted?
Absolutely. I meant to mention this on WordPress. If you have a lot of WordPress problems with the site going down and stuff like that, and you intend to stay with WordPress, I highly recommend WP Engine. WPEngine.com. They have incredible tech support through chat that you can access 24/7, and they aren't just somebody to talk to, like, I don't know, AT&T. It's like they're actual web developers who know the platform really well. They have access to everything. So if you need them to restart something, they can do that. They can even point you in the right direction. Like even your web developer, like I've talked to them about a problem before, and they like help me figure out what the problem is. And I'm like, this isn't even your job. So I really encourage WordPress users WordPress people to go with them. I've seen some very bad hosts where there's like database errors that take the site down. It's really awful.
I was just going to say Bluehost was just mentioned that that they're not good. And if they're kind of holding one of your sites hostage, is there a way to get out of that easily? Hostage. That's a tough question.
Yeah.
There shouldn't be held hostage necessarily. There are plugins that you can install in WordPress that will basically extract and download your entire database. And you should still have access to your theme. Like those are kind of the two core parts of a WordPress site. Unless they've actually disabled your data, your dashboard parts of it, like they shouldn't be able to hold your site hostage. So I'd just get a developer who's familiar with WordPress to go take a look at that and see how they can migrate that site. Also, WP Engine has a lot of tools that make migration easy to pull it right over to their servers, which is, yeah, so that's just another reason to love them. Yeah, so that's a big answer, good answer for your WordPress concerns. The other two platforms that I mentioned, you don't have to deal with hosting. Like Shopify is not a hosted solution. It is a hosted solution. They take care of the hosting for you. You never have to worry about downtime. Yet another reason why e-commerce should be on Shopify versus WordPress, because downtime is no longer an issue.
Exactly. Do you have another slide with your contact information on it, Nathan?
My contact information. I might.
You might. If not, yeah, there it is.
You do. Yes.
And it's a really cool one too. It's awesome. Yeah, we want to make sure everybody knows how to get a hold of you. And this is, again, part of a 3-part series. We will encourage everybody that if you know somebody that needs Web 102 or 103, this recording will be hosted on our website, and you have we've been posting that link over and over and over again at our presentations and webinars, and so you should be able to go back and look at this one, and then you'll be all caught up and you can come to 102 and 103. Same if you cannot see 102 or 103, you'll be able to see them on the website in the very near future. So we are so happy that you all were able to be here, and we can't wait to see you in the next 2 weeks, because we're having this every Wednesday at 2 o'clock. So same time, same place, same bat channel, or whatever that saying is. We really appreciate all of you being here again today as a part of this conversation. If you got Julie your contact information, you will be emailed a copy of this presentation, and again, you can find the recordings at our website. You'll also be given a brief survey that will help us continue to serve and bring you quality programs. Chris, do you want to go ahead and close us out and let us know everybody knows where to find us?
Yes, and I've been posting like a crazy person in the chat, so you probably got it there, but just let me reiterate.
I'll do it one more time.
Okay, great. Thank you. You can find a full listing of our workshops at sbtdc.uark.edu, and you can also use that QR code that's on the screen to sign up for more notifications or becoming a client. We are also posting a lot on social media, so please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And we are so happy that you joined us today, and we will see you all next Wednesday, I'm assuming.
Absolutely will. Thank you all. Have a great one.